I would like to introduce our speaker for today.
Oh, it looks like, did we drop Carrie? Well, I'm going to just jump right in because we have a lot to cover today. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, awesome. All right. So thank you so much for being here. And we have a little bit of a technical difficulty, such as the life of being a virtual program. We all know that. I want to thank the Quincy Public Library and QATV for allowing me to do my injury prevention work. I'm the injury prevention coordinator for Tufts Medical Center in Boston, a level 1 trauma center. And a big part of my role is to do outreach, focusing on the safety and injury prevention for the elderly population. So through this program, I'm able to partner up with the library, also QATV, to really get the word out on how to age strong. So the purpose of this program is to enrich and empower the lives of elder people, the older adults, so that they can be informed and make educated choices for themselves. And did you know that elder abuse is pretty common in the United States? In fact, I was reading a Forbes magazine article and said 1 in 10 Americans age 60 and up have experienced elder abuse. And one of the most common ones is financial elder abuse. And today we have Marianne Blatsos from Thrive FinCare Solutions to talk about and to share valuable information on the topic of elder financial abuse. Mary Ann, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to make this presentation because, like Debbie just said, elder financial abuse is more rampant in the United States than people even know. So to start off, I want to define elder financial abuse as defined in the Federal Elder Justice Act that was enacted in 2010. It defines financial exploitation of the elderly as the fraudulent or otherwise illegal, unauthorized, or improper act that uses the resources of an elder for monetary or personal benefit, profit, or gain, or that results in depriving an elder of their rightful access to or use of benefits, resources, belongings, or assets. So that when people think of elder financial abuse, I think they think of it in terms of money. It's not always just money. It goes to homes, it goes to automobiles, it goes to anything that an elder could possibly own. So that is the definition. And then there's some interesting statistics about elders in the United States. People over 50 years old control 70% of the wealth in the United States. 90% of elder financial abuse is done by a family member, typically adult children and grandchildren. And then the other forms of elder abuse are usually caregivers of some sort, whether it's an in-home caregiver, or it could even be an attorney or a financial advisor. So elders can be victimized in many different ways financially. I've read so many numbers on what the total dollars are. I've seen it go anywhere from $6 billion of fraud to, I read something that's at $19 billion. One of the reasons the number is very flexible is because a lot of people don't report. When somebody is abused, not just financially, but particularly financially, that they are too embarrassed, or there's so much shame around it that they will not report it. Also, if it's a family member, they don't want to report a family member. I've seen it in my business, and I've seen it in my prior professional life, where families tend to steal from each other at a much greater rate than people ever realize. And so if it's an elder, it's particularly easy. So that's why they don't report. As the baby boom generation keeps getting older and there's more cognitive decline, the rate of elder financial abuse is going to increase. And nobody really knows how bad it's going to be, but everybody knows it's going to be bad because it already is bad. The other thing, again, I just talked about, it's underreported because of shame and family involvement. And one statistic I read to me was kind of shocking, that victims of elder financial abuse die at a greater rate than other forms of elder abuse. Because of the shame, they tend to die much earlier.
Wow.
So those are some sort of shocking statistics about elder financial abuse.
Marianne, before you move on, because I know you're going to be covering a lot, that's just a lot of heavy stuff too that you just shared with us. Family members, the people that you love, and the person being the elderly person, I'm sure that particular person invested so much of their life taking care of their children, maybe grandchildren. I mean, now the elderly population are parenting grandchildren, right? It's just the reality. That's so much. That's very heavy and underreporting. I could really see that because of the shame, and families, they have their own secrets, right? They want to protect the name. We don't want to embarrass anybody, or we just don't want to call the police on somebody that we love, our blood, right? It's just so, I don't know, it's just very, very interesting. So, and people who are joining us today live, please, if you have any questions, unmute yourself or type it in the chat. We'll do our best to cover it. But, let's make this hour be interactive, and let's leave this program feeling really prepared. So that way, whoever we are serving, people in our family, at work, they can benefit from our knowledge today. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to keep doing that because I have a lot of questions for you.
Well, the one point I want to make to what you just said is you talked about how elders are now caring for their grandchildren. Because the rise of drug addiction, the grandchildren are stealing from their parents to buy drugs, the grandparents to buy drugs. So you talk about now there's another generation that is stealing from elders. So it is rampant, and then you said it's very heavy. This is very intense stuff. So I'm going to talk about different ways that elders can be frauded financially. Some of them I know that you've all heard about. One of them is the grandparent scam. We're just talking about grandparents. The phone call or the email sent to a grandparent saying, "Hey Nana, I'm stuck. I need some money. And can you send me $5,000? I can't get out of wherever I'm at because I need this money. Can you send it to me?" That's a lot of people know of the grandparent scam. Another one is that people don't know a whole lot about is Medicare and health insurance scams. One thing that we were always told from the minute we get our Social Security number is never to share that number with anyone. Years ago, they your driver's license, your Social Security number was on, and then they started changing that many years ago. Well, the other thing is never share your Medicare number, because there's a lot of Medicare fraud that people are so unaware of. You'll get a call, "Hi, this is Medicare. Can I have your number? Because we have a great product for you." And then what they do is they start scamming Medicare using your number. They'll say they provided all of these services, which they never provided. So never share that number as well. Never share checking account numbers. Never share credit card numbers. A lot of that is common sense, but if you're older and you don't really know about this, then you might be inclined to share this information. Another one is the sweepstakes and lottery scams. I think I have been subject to that. I think probably everyone in this room may have been. You get an email saying, you have just won $5,000. In order to deposit that number, I need your social security number and your checking account number so I can deposit that number. And guess what? You don't get anything, but they take a lot. So there's I don't know, there's a whole 60 minutes about all these people in Lagos and in Africa who this is what they do. They scam people all over the world. And a lot of people fall victim, not just elders. The other one is robocalls. A lot of people don't know. They get a call, hi, I'd like to sell you such and such. And most of us know not to pick up the numbers or hang up when we get a robocall. Not everybody does. And if it's an elder who thinks it's a good product, then they're gonna say, gee, I want that product. The other thing is charity scams. There are a lot of people who will call and say, this is the Red Cross, whatever charity you could possibly think of. And elders are particularly generous and they want to give to charities. So if a charity calls and says, can you have some money? They're going to give that money. And guess what? They may only donate $10. There's going to be a lot more than $10 taken from the account. Another one that is very prevalent, I bet everybody in this room has been a victim of this, or not a victim necessarily, but you pick up the phone. Hi, this is the IRS. And if you don't pay us within a certain amount of time, we are going to come after you. We're going to beat down the doors and we're going to take your firstborn and we're going to steal your, you need to pay us $5,000 right now. I went to a client who was crying hysterically. I owe the IRS $5,000 and I had to calm her down and say, no, the IRS will never, ever call you. They will never call you. And if you think it's the IRS, ask for the agent number, ask for a number to call back, and I can guarantee you they will hang up on you. Or if they give you an agent number, or if you call back, you'll get the fast busy response.
Marianne,
So
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I got to tell you, I got that call. And boy, it really, it's very jarring.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person on the other line is a male and very hostile and told me that I didn't do my 2015 tax correctly. I owe the IRS, $2,000. And, if I don't pay up in 2 hours, the local police is going to come knocking on my door to arrest me.
Yep.
And you don't expect that type of aggression when you pick up the phone and you say hello, for one thing. And this person was just like on me. He said I was going to go to jail. And all I could think of, oh my God, I'm going to go to jail. My family is going to take care of my family. So, this like story started running through my mind. But at the same time, thank God, I was saying that part, my intuition said, wait, our taxes are fine. And this person is very aggressive. So finally I said, okay, I want to talk to your manager. What is your telephone number? I need to call you back. Mm-hmm. And then they hung up. Yeah. But it was just, I hung up the phone, but I was still shaking because, it's just, you don't expect that type of aggression over the phone.
That's right.
I got the same call.
Oh, did you?
But I flipped the switch a little bit because I said, you know what? I was aware of the scam to begin with, so I thought I'd have a little bit of fun. So I decided to play along and I said, you know what? You guys are right. I'm going to drive to the police station right now and turn myself in. And the guy on the other end had no idea what to say to me. He had no clue what to say. And I was like, I'm driving there right now. I can't live with this kind of guilt. And he's like, no, it's better if we just take care of it right now. I'm like, no, I'd rather just do the time.
I love that.
Good job.
I love that because I did the same thing, but I wasn't that clever, Judy. I did the same thing. I played along, and then he got really aggressive when he realized that I knew what he was doing. I love that. Can I have your permission to use that? I love it. But the bottom line is to remember the IRS will never, ever call you. And if you've dealt with the IRS, if I have just for clients and other things and for myself, they are very, they're tough, but they're very gracious. So there's another thing to remember. So there's a lot. Oh, the other one I wanted to talk about was when we talked about it briefly, was the internet and the email scams. And one thing that I had read about was this very savvy woman wanted a dog. And she decided that she found the perfect dog on the internet, and she never got her dog and was out $2,000. So there's check, and she is an elder, and she's well educated, very, very professional, very successful in her life, and never thought that she would be a victim of scam. And she was devastated, and she was ashamed. So it can happen in so many different ways. So any more discussion about what I've just talked about, the types of scams? Anything? Any questions? Debbie, do you want to interject anything?
You have 2 people. Oh, 3 people. All right. I thought I saw Christine's hands up.
No, I was going to say, I've seen like dating sites like Match, those type of things, both men and women, been messaging somebody and, I'm stuck somewhere. Can you send me some money to get back to the United States and things like that? So, and, I told the woman, I'm like, don't do it. It's a scam. You can Google it, and she did send some money, but not the thousands of dollars. But I mean, still, it was $500 she sent, and I'm like, it's a scam. I'm like, you need to. She's like, he's so handsome. I'm like, it's not him. That's some person that they're using their picture, and yeah. So those, I've seen those as well. So.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for saying that, because I have romance scams right here, and I went right by it. So thank you for doing that, because every so often you see a Dr. Phil that he has somebody's with their mother or their father who sent thousands of dollars. And they just want them to stop, and the person it's always the same. But I love him.
I know.
It's wonderful. Have you ever met him? No, he sent me pictures. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Yeah, I did actually saw an episode, and they had the person that they used his picture. They actually had him, and he's saying, that's not me. I'm not talking to you. And she wouldn't believe it. Like, the person was sitting right there, and he's saying, they stole my picture. They stole all his information. But he's like, I assure you, I haven't been messaging you, and she just didn't believe it. And so it was sad, but that happens. Yeah.
Thank you.
Joya, did you have something to add or a question?
I did. I just wanted to add, I've seen it with mail-in stuff. So people get things in the mail from either for-profit organizations or even some nonprofits. And I think that the way that when they mail these things out, it can be very confusing to somebody who might be in the beginning stages of dementia. Whereas it might say your membership is expiring or your donation is past due, and that can be very confusing for some people. And I have actually seen it happen where people have donated money thinking that it was a bill that they needed to pay or, some membership due.
People are just so creative. Judy?
This isn't necessarily a scam, but I don't know if it's something you can actually touch on a little bit. I had an elder resident who had a homemaker, and the homemaker was having the resident sign blank checks. And that's not even the issue. The issue is this resident had a paid guardian, and the guardian, who was an attorney, wasn't monitoring her bank account. And so this woman lost thousands of dollars to this homemaker who was the active person involved. But I felt the attorney was a passive person that was responsible for oversight that wasn't doing her job. So I don't know where that fits into this whole discussion, but I think she was just as bad as the actual homemaker who was doing this.
One of the things that and that's a very important point that I'm going to make, is I'm going to talk about some of the warning signs about elder financial abuse, because there are people in an elder's life who are stealing and nobody's doing anything about it. And one of the things that that happens, and I've seen it, is that an elder will have a caregiver, hired by a caregiving agency, paying their bills. And if you hire somebody to pay your bills, that person should either be your power of attorney, or they should be reporting to an attorney or somebody else who is the power of attorney. So that's one thing I do, is that if I have a client that I'm working with, either I'm the power of attorney or somebody else is the power of attorney, because there has to be a seamless understanding of where the money is going. Because, especially with cognitive decline, people don't realize who is signing, who is not signing. So where their money is going. Are the bills being paid? Are the bills not being paid? So there are so many red flags that one of the things that I say to when I'm making a presentation like this, never let anyone do anything for you financially unless that person is your attorney, the power of attorney, or some financial representative that you know and trust. Because as we talked about earlier, family members will try to steal money. Anybody will. So there's one warning sign right there that that person was being financially abused. Right there, that's a key one. That this person signing checks has no idea what's happening. So thank you for pointing that out, because that is on my list. So I'm going to give you some signs that a person is being victimized. And we're going to start with the first one: large, frequent, or unexplained bank withdrawals of funds transfers. Because what happens is the elder may be giving other people access to their funds, and so they're setting up a transfer to their account, to other accounts. So if somebody is looking at their financial statements or their bank statements, and they see these, $1,000 constantly, and nobody knows where it's going. So in my prior life as an auditor, we always looked for even numbers. So if we saw consistently $500, $1,000, $2,000, those are often, or checks made out to cash, those were often signs of fraud. A new person, such as a caregiver, suddenly doing their financial work out of the blue. So, your mother you've always written checks for your mother, and suddenly the caregiver or a neighbor is suddenly doing the paying bills and signing checks. Red flag, a major red flag. Another one is notice that, they've always been with one bank, and suddenly the elder is with another bank. And it's very complicated, and they don't understand why they changed or why they're with this, because that means that somebody else is probably controlling their funds. Another one is checks that are written as loans or gifts. If you keep seeing that, and they're writing a check to Mary Smith as a loan, well, what was that loan for? Do you have a loan agreement? As individuals, sometimes we may do a loan with a family member. I've done it, and when I do it, I do a loan agreement. I was a former banker in another life, so we do a signed loan agreement. So that's something to think about if you're doing something with your own family. And then you have it in writing. So if that person doesn't pay you back, then you can go to court and say, but you signed this agreement and you said you were going to pay me back. And the other thing is gifts. People will give money as gifts. And if they're consistently giving money as gifts, who are they giving these funds to? Changes to the will or a trust. You may have been you may have been mom's beneficiary or dad's beneficiary, and suddenly there's a new will, there's a new trust, and your name is nowhere to be seen. You need to get in touch with that attorney if you can. They may not be able to give you information, but if there's changes like that, you need to do something about that. And I would start with calling the attorney. And if it's a new attorney and he or she is not giving you information, it's a red flag. One of the things that I'm going back to my audit days, one of the things that we used to say to clients is, if you have somebody who's doing work for you, financial work for you, and they refuse to give you any information, think about that there's something going on, because you have the fiduciary responsibility if you own it. Let's say if you own a company. If you have a bookkeeper and you say to the bookkeeper, I need a financial statement. If I need I need to see the bank reconciliations, or if I need to see the check register, and they refuse to give you that information, fire them immediately. Because I've often found that when that's happening, there's fraud. So I just wanted to do that. If there's suddenly overdrafts or unpaid bills, why are the bills not being paid suddenly? Why are we giving overdraft notices? So means that money is leaving the account and the owner of the account doesn't know why it's happening. Another thing is a new best friend, somebody that's accompanying the elder to the bank. Suddenly, Debbie was always taking Mrs. Jones to the bank, and suddenly I'm taking Mrs. Jones to the bank. Debbie was doing it for 10 years. I'm now doing it all of a sudden. Why am I doing that? And where is those funds going? So there's another red flag. Debbie, you mentioned this before, signatures. Who's signing the checks? There are times that somebody may be signing the check, Mary Jones, but it's not Mary Jones' handwriting. Who's recognizing that? Who's looking at the canceled checks? Banks are not always giving you canceled checks anymore because there's so much online that you have to go look things up. And if you see, it's always a certain way, and suddenly the checks are being signed with a different signature, that's another red flag. Loss of property, signing over an automobile, signing over a home. It's happened where people have signed over their homes it can be to an attorney who's doing a trust. Just because you think it's an attorney and they have a legal degree doesn't mean that they are reputable. We often hear about financial people. Every so often you see, I think it's William Galvin. He has a person that there's an ad. There's a person who has lost. There was one for $300,000 in retirement savings that was lost to a financial advisor. That person was caught, and that woman receives her money back. That doesn't always happen. So you have to know everybody that's providing these services. Just because they say they're so-and-so and they have a bunch of letters behind their names doesn't necessarily mean that they are reputable and they won't steal from you. Sudden closing of accounts, particularly if they have the CD and they had a large CD and it's not due to come to expire until 3 years from now. You close it now, you have to pay all kinds of fees. Suddenly those CDs are closed. Or certain kinds of savings accounts that require, they have time limits. They're closed before the time limits. There's another indication right there that somebody is being fraud. One of the things that happens, we talked about the shame, is that when you start asking mom or dad or an elderly sister or whomever about these, suddenly these things are happening, like the check is going out to Marianne Blatzos for $5,000. Well, who's Marianne Blatzos? And they're confused, or they don't know, they can't answer. Because what happens is the easiest person to take advantage of is somebody with cognitive decline. That's the easiest person to fraud. Here, I don't, you can sign my checks, or yes, you can write out this check for me. There are people who go in and they pay bills for people. You want to make sure that person is bonded and insured, that person is if possible, is the power of attorney, or that person is reporting to a power of attorney that I talk to. Make sure everything that's going on is seamless. And the other thing that may happen is you're going to start asking questions and the person shuts down. They don't want to answer anything because they don't want to share. I've seen so much of people complaining that, or being fearful that their parents, for instance, they're showing decline, but they won't let their children help. And the children are becoming fearful, and suddenly somebody comes in as helping them, and their fear there may be a reason for that, because they are the beneficiary of when mom and pop dies, and so they want to make sure that all the money is there. So suddenly they keep everything to the vest. They won't show anything, and there is another sign that something is going on. I'm going to stop here because I've just given a lot of information, and if people have questions, please ask.
You know what's, oh, okay, go ahead, Judy, go ahead.
Hi. So on that same theme, where does the line, and so I work in public housing with elders, and something we see here is some families use public housing as, and this is going to sound a little bit harsh, but some like a warehouse for their parents.
Mhm.
And they don't provide the care that the parent deserves and needs, because that's going to affect their inheritance. So is that abuse as well?
Yes,
I think so.
absolutely.
Yeah. But
Absolutely.
how do you approach that with the family?
Well, you approach it, and then if you get resistance, there should be agencies. I have a list of agencies and different people as part of my presentation, who you can call and talk to, because if you think that's a form of abuse, and I believe that it is,
Mhm.
and a lot of elders are warehoused, and that's a perfect word for it. A lot of elders are warehoused, and so they're left to the care of an understaffed facility, and the family is just ignoring these people. And so there comes a time when if they're suffering from more cognitive decline, or their health is in decline, and nothing is being done, then you have to call the family. And then if family doesn't do anything, cities and states have, as directed by the federal government, by the act, by the the Federal Justice Act, that states have requirements now. And so if you can call, there should be a hotline in Massachusetts that you can call, you can report. So you can do that. Yes, Judy, I believe I agree with you. And that family should be spoken to. If nothing happens, then they should be reported.
Yeah. Safety first. I mean, if it's becoming a fall risk issue, and also an issue where the resident themselves, the victim, or maybe the questionable victim, doesn't seem right. Just we need to follow our gut instinct too. I mean, as professionals or family members, if we are to go and visit our family members or visit our clients, and if something doesn't seem right, then we need to follow through, because something probably is not right. So
it's a slippery slope though with families, especially if the family member has assumed guardianship, and they're warehousing their parents, and their parents is having a cognitive decline, and the family member will hold off and hold off and hold off until it can be 3 a.m. and their mother is out standing at the bus stop in her pajamas, and and they're still not doing anything about this issue. It's hard to push back, especially when they've already assumed guardianship.
That is when there's guardianship involved. Yes, there is, but I still think that I would call the state and ask them what they think you should do, because, like you said, if I would want to know that my mother is out at the bus stop in her pajamas, and if this keeps going on and you can't get any results, I still would report them. I would.
Very good question. Anybody else have any questions
Or comments?
or comments? I do want to, as far as these scams and just putting myself in the situation of somebody who is hard of hearing, very anxious. They may not have cognitive decline, but they're very, very anxious. So they pick up the phone and they just hear blah, 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 Medicare, so they would probably just assume, okay, Medicare's on the phone for me. They need information. They're not hearing the full sentence, or they're not able to process intuitively that this phone call may be a scam. So they will readily probably give these sensitive information, the number, Medicare number or social security number, to these people. So, those are just like some elements that could maybe contribute to financial elder abuse. And, I was also reading, I love the Marvel heroes, how Stan Lee, a very successful, intelligent man, also was a victim of financial elder abuse. So it can happen to anybody.
Mhm.
Successful people, intelligent people. You mentioned somebody who was really intelligent, but got caught in that scam.
Mhm.
So it can really happen to anybody. So the more we are aware of what's out there, the latest scams, the more it's going to empower us to make, really educated decisions or actions, right?
I absolutely agree. And one of the reasons why I love doing this is because there are so many people being scammed. And so part of it is education. I'm an elder. I've been almost caught in a couple of things. Luckily, I thought quickly enough, it's like, no, this shouldn't happen. It can happen, like you said, it can happen to anybody. It doesn't just mean somebody with cognitive decline or whatever. It can be anybody. So I think education is key. And maybe we have in assisted living facilities, there's big placards. If somebody calls you and asks you these questions, hang up, or maybe there's got to be more and more education. That's I personally, that's what I think. And we have to start educating everybody, not just seniors. We have to educate everybody, because scamming is becoming such a big issue, not just here, everywhere. So it's something that we all need to, maybe when you're in high school you take a course, but technology changes so quickly that presentations that I made 2 years ago, there's new information now. I constantly look up new scams, the newest elder scams, the newest financial so constantly look, I constantly see that. So the other thing I want to say, and I think I've talked to this a long time, I've talked about it more than once, is that the amount of shame that someone feels when they've been abused financially. So if you are, not just a parent, if there's somebody in one of your facilities and suddenly you start asking questions, they won't look you in the eye and they won't talk to you, or they say, I don't know. That is a huge red flag, because the shame is very debilitating and can cause their death, more so than if their children didn't call them for 3 weeks and were doing other things to abuse them. So that's the one thing. So watch, if you're good at reading people, make sure you really read the person you're concerned about. Try to read them and be as gentle as possible, because you don't want to shame them further. They've already been scammed. They don't want to be reprimanded or spoken to condescendingly, because they know that they have done something and they're just so ashamed of it. So that's the one thing of advice I can give, is just be very, very gentle. I'm sure some adult children, when they find out that mom's given away $1,000 and that's $1,000 less in their inheritance, are probably angry. But that's not the way to treat their parent. I just wanted to put that out there. So I have more. If we have any questions, or
I can imagine how powerless
yes.
some elderly people can be, especially if they live with a loved one and that loved one is supposed to be taking care of them, but is creating these instances where they're abusing their mother or grandmother or grandfather financially. How powerless that individual can be, the victim, because maybe there's a threat that's happening. Maybe that son or grandson, whoever is the person doing the crime, they're probably saying, well, if you turn me in, then you'll end up in the home, or you don't want people to know about this because I'll tell them about X, Y, and Z that you've done in the past. So there's that level of underlying emotional abuse that's happening there too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Usually if a person is being abused financially, they're probably being abused in other ways. And if they're not being abused in other ways, then there's the shame. So, so I'm going to start talking about prevention. Anything before I move on to prevention? Nope. Okay. So one of the things that we can do to prevent is, if we have a caregiver in the home, secure what you can secure. Cash, checkbooks, valuables. If you know that that somebody is coming into the home that you don't know, put as many things away as possible. I have a horrible story to tell. Years ago, I used to work in healthcare, and there were a group of people who were taking care of this elderly woman, and they were making a lot of money off of this elderly woman. And things started leaving the home. There was silver, there was jewelry. Little by little, these caretakers, not necessarily the nurses or other people, not necessarily everybody, but little by little, things started leaving this person's home. And eventually, she was, a lot of things were stolen. And I don't know if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably don't, but there was an article in the Globe a couple of months ago about a woman who lived on Nantucket, who started giving money to a woman that she thought was a fortune teller, and basically gave away everything. She ended up penniless. And so I will repost that if any of you want to, and if you put your emails in, I'll send it to you. It's a great article to read. It's a perfect example of elder financial abuse. Again, I talked about this before. Never share Social Security, Medicare, credit card, checking account, and never share that personal information. That just doesn't go for elders, that goes for everybody in the world. Everybody in the United States that has a Social Security number or Medicare number, credit, never share anything. Be present and really know if you have somebody that you care about, or also in your own life. Be aware of everything that's going on around you, because you know what? I used Uber for the first time and didn't use it correctly, and I got a $40 charge. So I got to call my bank and have them take that off. And that's just by being present, looking at my bank statement and saying, okay, they had no right to do this. So noticing, check your bank statements, check your parents' bank statement. If you're a power of attorney for somebody, watch everything, watch every penny. Use technology. Now, this is a problem because seniors don't necessarily want to use technology. Sometimes I'll say to a client, can we pay your bills online? Nope. Can we do this? No. I get no. Can we sign up for an online account access? No. Can we no. So what's happening is people who are, maybe 70s and 80s, don't necessarily feel comfortable with technology. They want to sign every check. And believe it or not, technology is sometimes safer. It really is. And so I always say, if I have to write a check, I get very grumpy. So I do, all my bills are paid online. So let's hopefully be able to share that information with seniors, and maybe that would be more helpful. Is, one of the things that happens a lot is one of the signs, and I didn't think of this because it's happened with other people, is that people that are in assisted living facilities, suddenly they're not writing a check. And the assisted living facility is like, well, we're not being paid in the first of the month like we used to be. It started getting later and later, and now it's just stopped. That person has forgotten and to pay because of cognitive decline, or somebody may be stealing from them, they don't have any money. And so that's a perfect example of setting somebody up on an automatic payment. So the rent, the mortgage, the whatever goes to the vendor automatically. And if your parent is in a facility, you don't have to worry about them getting a call. Well, they hadn't paid us for 3 months, and you have to come and take them out immediately. So, so that's something that you really want to think about.
Can I just touch base on that a little bit? We here at the Housing Authority, we do have a direct debit for rent payments, which is for us and probably for some family members who actually do care. It's like a blessing and a curse, because when they used to have to pay their rent in person by check, we would have eyes on them at least once a month. What happens now that we find, we've actually had people go missing because they'll be taken out in an ambulance and they go into a hospital and then they go into a rehab and they can be gone for months at a time. And we don't know it. We have no idea because they have the direct debit from their account. We've actually had people who have died who were still paying their rent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a double-edged sword. So if there is no family member involved overseeing this and the elder doesn't have any support system, it can be a problem with the direct debit stuff.
Yes, and that's right, and just in every kind of way. The question I have for you: so wherever your clients are, nobody's checking in on them every day.
No, we're public housing, so everybody's
public housing. Okay.
Yep, independent. We have 941 senior units, so which comes out to about 1,200 people, and we try to get out into the buildings as often as we can, even during the pandemic, because we get more information being on site rather than in our office, just by gossip mostly. We haven't seen Shirley in 3 weeks. Does anybody know what happened to Shirley? And so then we can follow up that way. But other than that, we really have no idea where people are that have direct debit.
Okay, understood. And we talked about the warning signs. The red flags are really important to keep that. The other thing is, and you just brought this up, Judy, is alert the bank to life changes. So you've had situations where you don't have eyes on every day on your clients or your renters, and so in other issues, if somebody does die or somebody does go into a nursing home, alert the bank to stop the automatic payment, or if a family member is taking care, they need to. Whoever the power of attorney is, so if there's somebody else in charge of that, then somebody needs to alert the bank that there have been changes in the person's life. And not only that, but there have been changes in that maybe there is cognitive decline, or there's some kind of a health issue. So if somebody is coming in, make sure that person is a power of attorney. If somebody's coming in and cashing a check every week, well, who's cashing that check in the elder's name? Is that person? Is it okay for that person to be cashing the check? And because if the person is as they decline or their health declines, there can be instances where somebody starts taking advantage of them. So if a family member knows, well, you know what, so-and-so is taking care of my mother, so when she comes in to cash a check, please know that this person's coming in, and another person comes in, no, you do not give her any money. Stay in touch with the service providers. So if you talked about, Judy, where a patient has left, or a renter has left, and you don't know about it. So their family, if they have a family, is not letting you know that there's been a change in this person's life, and they haven't updated you that they're not there anymore, and they've gone to a nursing home, or whatever, they're now living at home, or they've passed away. So keep in touch with changes. If somebody's in an assisted living facility, they're more like, they will know when somebody comes and goes, and they may be responsible for updating the bank and other vendors on what is going on with that person. I found this, and I want everyone to think about this because I am going to look at this. When I was doing my research, I found the Thinking Ahead Roadmap website. That is a website that will help you make plans for, and I'll put it in the chat. It's a website that's going to help you make plans for financial and other decisions that that we don't always think about. So if you have a family member who may be on the decline, and so you or a parent is on the decline, and you want to think how I can plan for that person. So I just found that this morning as I was doing some research for my presentation, and I think that's a good website for all of us to look at. We had talked about not reporting fraud. It happens, whether it's for shame or for whatever reason. So if something happens that you know about, there are state and local adult protective services. So if there's an adult protective services in your city or town or the state, you can start with the state and take it from there. Is report. Because if it's not reported, then it just goes unchecked and it keeps happening. You also want to report fraud to banks and financial institutions, because the bank needs to know that somebody is signing for a check and that person doesn't have a right. So the bank needs to be alerted to stop payment on these checks, to do whatever they can to protect their client. And if they're not, then they can be responsible as well. So they need to know. Of course, the police. Nobody wants to call the police, but you know what? We need to call the police because it's a crime. It is a crime. No matter who it is or how much it is a crime. Somebody has been frauded out of their money. And the other thing is the Elder Justice Initiative, which was started by the U.S. Department of Justice, and they have support services by state. So there is a lot of help out there, and we have questions such as the questions that Judy has raised, being in a position where we have tenants, and what do we do in this situation? They have guardians, they're not taken care of. So there are services that will help you make decisions. So I know I've just dumped a whole lot on you again, so I'm going to be quiet for a while and let people ask questions.
Marianne, do you think during COVID, this type of crime has gone up higher? And why do you think that?
I'm going to say absolutely, because I think if people are at home and they need help, they're going to let whomever is there help them, or if they're going to let people that they don't really know and trust, or not that they know, I'm sorry, they don't know not to trust them. So let's say a person is in a nursing home and the nursing home is shut down, and the children cannot see their parents. They can only see them through a window. Well, if somebody was paying their bills, or if somebody is there and suddenly that person can't get in, who's paying those bills? Who's helping them? So there's a lot of people that were shut off during lockdown. So what happened to those people if they needed money, if they needed help? So what happened to those people? I got a call from an assisted living facility. A person was working with other people and nobody could get to help her. Could I come and help her? So yes, I don't know it as a fact, but I believe it because of the environment of elder financial abuse. Yes, and if people are home and they're getting a call from somebody very friendly, hi, this is your local charity. Can you give me $150 for saving animals? And there's that person has a dog. They're going to send that $150, and there may not be somebody there to check in. What everybody needs who lives alone is somebody checking in, somebody saying hello. As more and more elders age in place, check-ins are really going to be needed. So I don't know for a fact, but I believe it just by virtue of what happens with elder financial abuse. Absolutely.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Any ahas?
Yes, I'd love some feedback.
Yeah.
Here.
Share with us what, maybe one or two things that you got from this particular topic.
Nothing. Okay.
Wow, it's good.
I
We really
I know,
appreciate your suggestions.
I know it was helpful because whenever I give this presentation, I get a lot of ahas. So I know that people got something out of it because you can't. It's so important that we all look out, not just for our own selves, but wherever some of you are working, you have clients that could be victims right now. And so you are probably, thinking, oh, I bet there were a couple of things that's like, oh my gosh. I can tell you a story. I went to visit a new client in an assisted living facility. And there was a resident who was meeting somebody in the parking lot. So the woman at the front desk, the receptionist, was watching this. And she went outside and said, who are you? And why are you taking money from this person? And the person was suffering from cognitive decline and could not answer the question. And the other person took off. So she saw it just by observing. Why is this woman walking out in the freezing cold in the snow to give somebody money? And she stopped somebody being taken advantage of financially. So it's observing, to be present, observing what's going on around us.
Yeah, and doing something if something doesn't look right. We are almost at the top of the hour. Marianne, you covered so much. This hour has gone by really fast. So if people want to learn more about you, what is your website and what is the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm going to put my information in the chat. Is that okay? I'll just put it in the chat. Oh, well, I'll just tell you. So my mobile number, my business number is 781-595-5353. My email is mb@thrivefincare.com. And my website is thrivefincare.com. If you have any questions, please email me. Let me know. Follow me on LinkedIn. I will repost that when I can see some of your names. When I see that some of you, I'm going to repost that article that was in the Globe. It's just it's such a good article to read. It's a long read, but it's well worth reading. And a perfect example. I can find so many examples, but this one was just, it was in the local. It was not in the New York Times, it was in the local paper. So that's why I posted. It's a great article. So if you find me, you can go in and read it as well. But I'll probably post it again in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you
Welcome.
everybody for being here. And I hope to see everybody again next time. February 8th, I will have Donna Bartlett. She is a pharmacist, a professor, and she will be talking about de-prescribing. What is de-prescribing? Well, you'll find out because it's very important for the aging population. Thank you so much again. Take care and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.